Hello, this is Dirk de Jong, and I'm a product manager here at Boris Effects. And recently I've been prototyping some possible transition effects for future releases of BCC and FEC, Boris Continuum Complete and Final Effects Complete. And I happen to be doing it in Avid Media Composer since now many more of these effects offer real-time previews. And it occurred to me that these effects I was making, as well as the technique I was using to create them, might be useful to users of our current BCC and FEC plugins for Media Composer and Symphony. So we've provided a free download of some Avid bins containing some BCC and FEC effects. This sequence that I'm scrubbing through right here simply consists of the same 4 shots repeated a few times with some samples of these transitions I made added. I also added a music track and some sound effects as a sort of afterthought. So let me just play down the sequence now. So those are some samples of the effects from these bins, the bins included in the free download. And let me show these bins here, my limited screen capture space. So here's a bin called BCC Overlay Transitions, another one called FEC Overlay Transitions, and a third one called BCC and FEC Mixed Overlay Transitions. So this one uses effect stacks, which use effects from both sets, and this one's from just Final Effects, and this one's from Boris Continuum Complete only. So those plugins are required to be able to use these effects. One thing you've probably noticed is that these effects are applied on a V2 video track above the source video, and indeed that's the way that these effects will be used. They don't exist, at least not yet, as single track transitions. So that's why I named them in the bin name. I've named them overlay transitions because that's sort of the technique for applying them. Let me show you how it works. First, I'll show how to apply one of the transitions from the bins in the free download, and then I'll show how to create such an effect from scratch and save it for future use. So let me go to this cut point between these 2 shots. Another thing you might have noticed is, or I should mention is, so here's all my BCC effect categories, FEC effect categories. When I have these bins open in an Avid project, down in the bottom of your effect palette, it'll create categories, using the name of the bin with any effects included in that bin. Most of you probably are aware of that already. But so, FEC overlay transitions, they're ready to drag and drop. You will want to create a V2 above the background video. And like if I use this FEC Cross Melt horizontal, I'll just drag it here and drop it so it's more or less centered over the cut point. And let me just zoom in on that area a little more. And as I mentioned, these, since there's so many more green dot effects, you actually get a decent real-time preview there. And let's just show quickly what this effect consists of. So I just unfolded it there. And the innermost level is FEC channel blur. So if I go in here and I bypass that, you see what that channel blur is doing. So I have a horizontal blur on the red, green, and blue channel and differing amounts, and it animates over time. And brightness and contrast, pretty obvious what that does there. And then on the outermost level is this FEC Blobulize, which gives this sort of unique bubbled kind of look, this distortion to the image. And sort of the trick, the little sleight of hand that you're doing with this kind of transition is you're basically hiding the cut. And you see in this case, because the brightness, if I bypass the brightness, brings it all the way to white, it kind of hides the cut. And there I've disabled the brightness, and so you get a kind of a jarring jump in the middle there. That's why the brightness is in there. Alternately, what I've seen some editors do with this technique is, for the track below, you can just add a add a short dissolve, and so now it's basically going to be smoother, even without the brightness effect. So that's something you can also do with these overlay effects, although most of them are currently set up that you probably don't need to do that. You can just, there's some element of the effect which will effectively help you hide the cut underneath. So that is how you apply these. And let me just show you. I'll talk a little bit more about some aspects of this type of effect, but let's just show how I would create and save one from scratch. So let's let me back out here and see what's a good. Let's say between these two shots, I'm going to do some kind of an effect, and because I'm going to be dragging an effect just from the regular BCC or FEC effect palette, it doesn't already have a duration, so we need to kind of determine at least the duration to start. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put an add edit there before the cut and an add edit there after the cut in the track above. And so that's my little segment that's going to be the transition, and that'll be the duration of the transition. So in the BCC stylized category, why don't I grab this damage TV effect and put it on there. And so at its simplest level, that's what it does. There's no keyframing or animation in there. That's auto-animated. What I find to sort of sell this kind of effect, see the cut is too obvious there. But if I go to the seed control, and I'm going to hold down the control key and scrub it so I have kind of a fine adjustment there. If you have the cut occur while it's kind of rolling, that effectively does a nice job of kind of obscuring the cut between images there. That makes it sort of feel like a more natural, distorted TV, almost like a channel change or something like that. So that's, we have one effect in the stack here. One thing I tended to do with these damage TV effects, let me just see here if I grab another effect from the effect palette. I think I was using Prism actually to achieve that sort of RGB split look. So I'm alt dragging Prism on top of there. So it's nested on top of damage TV. Let me turn the sample count down to 3. Starting depth to 1. And so what I like to do is I'm going to actually animate this starting depth. So maybe at the point where it starts to break up, so it's going to be somewhere right around there, I'll add a keyframe, and then somewhere in here, kind of give it a little more color there, and then back to 1. Whoops, not 0, but 1. So now if I scrub through, get that. Another thing that goes well with a lot of these kinds of effects is like a brightness or contrast effect. And that, if I wanted to apply it to the original underlying image, that's another useful thing about unfolding the effects this way. So if I go to color and tone, if I drop that there, I can even fold that back up. So now my brightness and contrast is nested within this effect. So maybe you want to start it off with a little burst of brightness. This is kind of like a random, kind of glitchy look creating here. And of course, one nice thing with this Avid Advanced keyframing, a lot of these effects that I made They're not just using linear interpolation, they're using Bezier, and I've gone in and customized the the handle adjustments to give kind of a nice feel to these animations. All right, so let's say that is that's our damaged TV transition. And actually another one that that is often used in these transitions is like a mix with original. So if you want to, I mean, for damaged TV, it's probably kind of nice to have it be jarring and sudden. But if you want to ever just fade the effect, you can go back to there. And also, there's a lot of useful. I didn't really adjust much in this damaged TV, but I like to adjust the scan line control, and you can even. This is another good one to animate down. So anyway, here's our there's our effect, and render it so I can preview it, just making sure it's not going to drop any frames. Should be a pretty quick render here. So that's a stack of 3 different BCC effects used to achieve that transition. Now here's a really important part. How do you save this for reuse? This is a key thing to understand. Do I have a spare bin around here that I can use? Okay, yeah, let me just use this bin. And normally when you save an effect, you just drag it over. But I'm going to hold down the Alt key. And if I drag this over, you see this with SRC means with source. So it's basically saved any effects lower in the stack as well as the source, but in this case the source is just filler. So it's easy to reapply. There won't be any actual source media that gets in the way of reusing the stack. So you can call this Dirk TV cut. And now if I go and find another place where I might want to use it, I can just drag it and drop it on there. And it comes through there. Anyway, hopefully some of these effects are useful, and this process for creating these transitions is useful to users of Boris Continuum Complete or Final Effects Complete.